Captain Frank Bradley stood at attention on the bridge of the Vaxtari warship Subjugator, his face carefully blank as Commander ZeXastral paced before him. The alien was tall, nearly 7 feet, with iridescent blue skin that seemed to pulse, with barely contained energy. Frank had learned long ago that showing any emotion before a Vaxtari was dangerous, especially one as high-ranking as ZeXastral. "Your soldiers performed adequately in the Centauri operation," ZeXastral said, his voice a strange mix of clicks and whispers that the translator rendered into flat English. "For primitives." "Thank you, Commander," Frank replied, the words bitter in his mouth. 53 human Marines had died in that operation, a brutal suppression of miners who'd failed to meet their quotas. But Frank knew the rules. Humanity had learned them at the cost of 2 colony worlds and 16 million lives. The Vaxtari didn't tolerate defiance. They ruled through terror, and for 50 years, Earth had bowed its head rather than face extinction. "Approach the New Hope colony," ZeXastral continued. "You will prepare your people for inspection. The Imperium has new requirements." Frank's stomach tightened. New requirements never meant anything good. "Yes, Commander, may I ask what changes to expect?" ZeXastral's mouth slits widened in what passed for a smile among his kind. "The resource quotas will increase by 40% effective immediately." Frank nearly broke his composure. 40%? "Commander, with respect, New Hope is already operating at maximum capacity. The equipment is irrelevant," ZeXastral cut him off. "The needs of the Imperium are what matter. If your species cannot meet these simple demands, perhaps we overestimated your usefulness." The threat hung in the air between them. Frank lowered his eyes, hatred burning in his chest. "We will meet the quotas, Commander." "See that you do. You're dismissed." Frank left the bridge, his hands shaking once he was alone in the corridor. He entered his quarters and activated the privacy field, one small concession the Vaxtari granted to their valuable servants. Then he slammed his fist into the wall. How could he tell the colonists? New Hope was already working around the clock. The colony had been established 8 years ago as a titanium mining operation, and the 4,000 humans there had built something close to a real community, despite Vaxtari oversight. They had schools, hydroponic gardens, even a small park in the central dome. With these new quotas, they would have to dismantle half their living spaces to make room for more refining equipment. The park would be the first to go. Frank activated his comm unit. "Get me a secure line to Linda Weaver." Linda Weaver watched her daughter Amy chase a butterfly in the colony's small park. At 6 years old, Amy had never seen Earth, never felt real wind or seen an ocean, but she didn't know what she was missing, and Linda worked hard to keep it that way. "Higher, Mommy, higher," Amy called, her blonde curls bouncing as she jumped for the butterfly. Linda laughed and lifted her daughter. "Up. Got it." Amy giggled as the butterfly escaped through her fingers. "It's too fast." "They're tricky," Linda agreed, setting her down. 10 more minutes, then we need to go. I have a meeting." As New Hope's colonization specialist, Linda was responsible for maintaining life support, food production, and living arrangements. It was a demanding job, but it allowed her to create as normal a life as possible for Amy. Her comm unit buzzed. The ID showed Captain Bradley, her official contact with the Vaxtari overseers. Linda frowned. "He wasn't scheduled to visit for another month." "Weaver here," she answered quietly. "Linda, we're inbound to New Hope. ETA 3 hours. Frank's voice was tight. "Already? What's happening?" "Can't say much over comms. ZeXastral is coming personally. It's about the quotas." Linda's heart sank. How bad? The pause told her everything. "Prepare the usual welcome. We'll talk when I'm planet-side." The line went dead. Linda looked at Amy, still chasing butterflies, blissfully unaware of the Vaxtari and their cruel demands. "Amy, honey, we need to go now." "But Mommy, you said 10 minutes. "I know, sweetheart, but something important came up. How about we stop for ice cream on the way home?" Amy's face lit up. "Chocolate?" "Of course." As they walked hand in hand through the dome, Linda nodded to other colonists. News of the Vaxtari visit was already spreading. She could see it in their tense faces and hushed conversations. At home, Linda helped Amy change into clean clothes and set her up with a learning tablet. Mommy has to work now. Be good, okay? Will you be back for bedtime? I'll try, honey. Linda kissed her daughter's forehead. If not, Mrs. Garcia next door will tuck you in. In her small office, Linda activated the colony emergency protocols. Within minutes, the department heads joined a virtual meeting. The subjugator will arrive in less than 3 hours, Linda explained. Captain Bradley indicates they're here about quotas. Jack Powell, the mining supervisor, groaned. We're already running the drills at 110% capacity. The equipment can't take much more. We don't have a choice, said Elena Ruiz, head of security. Remember what happened to the Proxima colony when they failed to meet demands. Everyone fell. Silent. 3 years ago, the Proxima colony had fallen behind on deuterium production. The Vaxtari had executed the entire administrative staff as an incentive for the survivors. We'll prepare the formal reception, Linda decided. Full protocol. Elena, make sure none of the more outspoken colonists are present. Already on it. Jack, have the latest production reports ready but emphasize the maintenance issues. Maybe we can negotiate a smaller increase if they understand our equipment limitations. Worth a try, Jack said without conviction. As the meeting ended, Linda stared at the colony map on her wall. 8 years of careful planning and hard work had transformed this hostile planet into a home. The park had been her special project, a small piece of Earth for children who might never see the real thing. How much of it would survive the Vaxtari's new demands? The subjugator entered orbit with the quiet menace of a predator. Smaller than many Vaxtari warships, it was still large enough to cast a shadow over New Hope's main dome when it descended through the atmosphere. Frank stood behind Zextral as the ship landed. The commander seemed pleased by the colony's reception. An honor guard of humans standing at attention, department heads lined up with appropriate deference, and the Vaxtari flag prominently displayed. Linda Weaver stepped forward. Commander, Zextral, New Hope Colony welcomes you. We are honored by your presence. Frank could see the strain behind her professional smile. 8 years ago, Linda had been an administrator on Earth, volunteering for colonial service after losing her husband. In a Vaxtari pacification operation, she'd raised Amy alone while helping build this colony from nothing. Now she was bowing to the same aliens who had made her a widow. Zextral didn't acknowledge her greeting. He simply stepped off the ramp and surveyed the assembled humans as one might inspect livestock. Captain Bradley speaks highly of this colony's efficiency, he finally said. We shall see if his assessment is accurate. I will inspect your operations, then we will discuss the new quotas. Frank watched Linda's face pale slightly at the word quotas, but her expression remained calm. We look forward to demonstrating our productivity, Commander. If you'll follow me, we've prepared a tour of our facilities. As the reception party moved toward the main dome, Frank fell into step beside Linda. 40%, he whispered. Linda stumbled slightly before regaining her composure. Impossible, she breathed. I know. Ahead of them, Zextral moved with the confident stride of someone who owned everything and everyone around him. In a way, Frank thought he did. The Vaxtari Imperium had ruled the local star cluster for thousands of years. Earth, barely a century into space exploration, had been easy prey. Humanity's choice had been simple: serve or die. But looking at the colony, at the people who had built lives here despite everything, Frank wondered how long they could continue to live under such terror. As they entered the main dome, a child's laugh rang out somewhere in the distance. Frank saw Zextral's head turn slightly toward the sound, his expression unreadable. The inspection had begun. The inspection dragged on for hours. Commander Zextral examined every part of the colony, from the mining drills to the food storage units. He showed particular interest in the refining facilities, where raw titanium ore became the pure metal the Vaxtari prized. Linda answered his questions precisely, hiding her fear behind professionalism. Beside her, Frank watched Zexatral for any sign of weakness they could exploit. He found none. "Your equipment is inefficient," Zexatral finally declared as they exited the last facility. "This explains your poor output." "With respect, Commander," Linda replied carefully. "This equipment is all we were allowed to bring from Earth. If the Imperium would permit upgraded machinery—" "You waste my time with excuses," Zexatral interrupted. "The new quotas stand. 40% increase effective immediately." Jack Powell stepped forward. "Sir, the drills are already running beyond safe levels. Without maintenance, your safety concerns are not the Imperium's problem." Zexatral's voice became dangerously soft. "If humans die, we will simply send more. You are easily replaced." Frank saw Linda's hands tighten into fists. He touched her arm gently, a warning. "We understand, Commander," Frank said. "New Hope will meet the quotas." "See that they do, Captain. Tonight, we will finalize the details at your formal reception. I expect all department heads to attend." Zexatral turned and walked toward the Vaxtari shuttle that would take him back to the orbiting ship until evening. When he was gone, Linda's shoulders slumped. "We can't do it, Frank. We'll have to run the drills around the clock, cut life support to minimum levels. The park will have to go," Jack added quietly. "We need the space for more refiners." Linda closed her eyes briefly. "I know. We'll find a way," Frank assured them, though he didn't believe it himself. "For now, focus on impressing them tonight. Best behavior from everyone." They nodded and separated to prepare for the evening reception. Amy Weaver was bored. Mrs. Garcia had been watching her since lunchtime, but the old woman had fallen asleep in her chair. Amy's learning tablet had run out of power, and there was nothing to do. She went to the window and looked out at the colony. Something was happening today. Lots of grown-ups walking around looking worried. Her mom had been gone all day. Then Amy saw something strange, a flash of purple light from the trees beyond the colony fence. No one had ever taken her to those trees. Mom said it wasn't safe outside the colony, but the light was so pretty. It flickered again like a dancing star. Amy looked at Mrs. Garcia, still snoring softly. She could just take a quick look. She'd be back before anyone noticed. Amy slipped out of the apartment and made her way through the corridors. Everyone was busy preparing for something, and no one paid attention to one small girl. She knew the way to the maintenance door. She'd seen workers use it before. The door wasn't locked. Amy pushed it open and stepped outside the colony dome. For the first time in her life, the air felt different, thinner and colder. The sky was a strange orange color, and there, just past the first line of trees, the purple light flickered again. "Hello?" Amy called, walking toward it. "Is someone there?" The light seemed to retreat as she approached. Amy followed, curiosity pulling her deeper into the alien forest. At the formal reception that evening, Linda stood with the other department heads, wearing the colony's best uniform. The dining hall had been transformed with the few decorations they had, and their best food was laid out on tables. It wasn't much compared to Vaxtari luxury, but it was all they could offer. "Where's Amy?" Frank asked as he joined her. "With Mrs. Garcia. I'll be late getting home tonight." Linda sighed. "How do I explain to a 6-year-old that her favorite park is being turned into a refinery?" Before Frank could answer, the doors opened and Commander Zexatral entered with his officers. The humans fell silent and bowed their heads as protocol demanded. The reception began with formal speeches. Linda barely heard the words, her mind on the impossible task ahead. They would need to work the colonists in longer shifts. Safety standards would have to be ignored. People would get hurt, or worse. Halfway through dinner, Linda's comm unit buzzed. She glanced at it discreetly and saw Mrs. Garcia's ID. Strange. The old woman knew not to call during the reception unless it was an emergency. Linda excused herself and stepped into the hallway. "Mrs. Garcia." "Linda, I'm so sorry." The old woman's voice was panicked. "I fell asleep and when I woke up, Amy was gone." Linda's blood turned to ice. "What do you mean, gone?" "She's not in the apartment. I've checked everywhere. I called some neighbors, but no one has seen her." Linda fought to keep her voice steady. "When did you last see her?" Around 2 hours ago. Linda, I'm so sorry. Call security right now. Tell them to start searching the residential section. I'll be there as soon as I can. Linda ended the call and leaned against the wall, her heart racing. Amy had never wandered off before. Had she gone looking for Linda? Was she lost in the colony? Frank stepped into the hallway. Linda, what's wrong? Amy's missing. Mrs. Garcia can't find her. Linda struggled to maintain her composure. I need to go. Frank nodded. Go. I'll make your excuses to Zextral. Linda hurried through the corridors, fighting panic. The colony wasn't that big. Amy couldn't have gone far. When she reached her apartment, she found Mrs. Garcia in tears and Elena Ruiz, the security chief, already organizing search teams. We've started checking all public areas, Elena explained. When did you last see her? This morning, before the inspection. Linda's voice shook. She's only 6, Elena. She doesn't know her way around the whole colony. We'll find her, Elena promised. I've got 20 people searching already. Linda grabbed a handheld scanner. I'm joining the search. For the next hour, they combed through the colony. Every room, every corridor, every storage area. They called. Amy's name checked with every colonist they met. No one had seen her. By midnight, the entire colony knew Amy Weaver was missing. Even the evening reception had been disrupted as more colonists joined the search. Linda stood in the colony's central hub, where Elena had established a command center. Search teams reported in regularly, each with the same message. No sign of Amy. Could she have accessed the maintenance areas? Frank asked, having joined the search after making excuses to the Vaxtari. Elena nodded grimly. We're checking there now. But if she went into the ventilation system or the utility tunnels, she didn't finish the sentence. They all knew those areas could be dangerous with exposed wiring and steep drops. What about outside the dome? Linda asked suddenly. Elena and Frank exchanged glances. The external doors are all locked, Elena said. She couldn't get out. Check anyway, Linda insisted. A security officer approached them, his face grave. Chief, we found something. The maintenance door in Section 4 was unlocked, and there are small footprints in the soil just outside. Linda felt the room spin around her. She's outside? In the dark? Frank steadied her. We'll expand the search. I'll get my Marines to help. We should inform Commander Zexitral, Elena said reluctantly. Protocol requires. I don't care about protocol, Linda snapped. My daughter is out there alone. The Vaxtari have better scanning technology, Frank reminded her gently. They could find her quickly. Linda knew he was right, but the thought of asking the Vaxtari for help made her sick. Still, for Amy, she would beg if necessary. Let's go, she said. They found Zextral in the colony's administration building, looking irritated at the disruption to his evening. Commander, Frank began formally, we have a situation. A child has gone missing. This is why you interrupted the reception? Zexitral's voice was cold. For a missing juvenile. My daughter is outside the colony dome, Linda said, stepping forward. She's only 6 years old. The night temperatures drop below freezing. She won't survive long. And this concerns the Imperium how? Zextral asked. Linda stared at him in disbelief. She's just a child. Please, your ships have better scanners. You could find her in minutes. Zexitral looked at her with something close to amusement. Primitive species must solve primitive problems. Your breeding practices are not our concern. Frank stepped between them as Linda lunged forward. Commander, I formally request assistance under Section 7 of the Colonial Agreement. The loss of any colonial citizen threatens production quotas. Zexitral's mouth slits twitched. Your request is denied, Captain. One human larva is insignificant. Your species breeds rapidly enough to replace it. He turned to leave. I expect the new quota arrangements on my desk by morning. Do not disturb me again with such trivialities. As the door closed behind him, Linda sank to her knees, tears finally breaking through her control. He won't help, she whispered. He won't help find my baby. Frank helped her up, his face hard with anger. Then we'll find her ourselves. Every colonist, every Marine. We'll search all night if we have to. Outside, the alien forest stood dark and silent, hiding its secrets. And somewhere within it, a small girl followed a purple light deeper into the darkness. The search continued through the night. Every able-bodied colonist joined teams that combed the areas outside the dome. They carried lights and portable scanners, calling Amy's name into the darkness. Linda refused to rest. She pushed forward, into the alien forest, Frank at her side. The trees had smooth blue bark and leaves that glowed faintly in the dark. Under different circumstances, Linda might have found them beautiful. Now they were just obstacles hiding her daughter. "Amy?" she called for the 100th time. "Amy, can you hear me?" Only the strange whisper of the alien wind answered her. "We should head back to the command post," Frank said gently. "The other teams might have found something." Linda shook her head. "She's out here somewhere, Frank. I can feel it." Frank didn't argue. He had known Linda for years, since before the colony when they both worked at Earth's Defense Ministry. She had always been strong, even after losing her husband. But now, he saw a new kind of determination in her eyes. A mother's fear turned into something powerful and dangerous. At dawn, they returned to the colony for new supplies. Elena Ruiz met them with coffee. "Anything?" Linda asked immediately. Elena shook her head. "Not yet, but we found more footprints leading toward the restricted zone." Frank and Linda exchanged glances. The restricted zone was an area 5 miles from the colony that the Vaxtari had declared off-limits when New Hope was established. The colonists were told it contained unstable geological formations. No human had ever been allowed inside. Why? Would she go that way? Linda wondered. Maybe she saw something, Frank said. Amy's curious by nature. The Vaxtari have sensors around the restricted zone, Elena warned. If we cross that boundary, they'll know. Linda's face hardened. I don't care anymore. If Amy went in there, so will I. I'm coming with you, Frank decided. Elena, keep coordinating the search teams. If the Vaxtari ask, tell them we're checking the eastern sector. Elena nodded. Be careful. And Linda, we'll find her. Linda grabbed fresh supplies and a better scanner. As she turned to leave, she noticed HFY watching from across the command center. His alien eyes revealed nothing, but Linda felt a chill run down her spine. She quickly looked away and followed Frank outside. Amy wasn't sure how long she had been walking. Her legs hurt and she was very cold. The pretty purple light kept moving just ahead of her, leading her deeper into the forest. Please wait, she called to it. I'm tired. The light paused, hovering between 2 trees. It seemed to pulse like it was breathing. Amy approached slowly. The light was beautiful up close, swirling patterns of purple and blue. It reminded her of pictures she had seen of Earth's northern lights. What are you? She whispered. The light moved again, drifting toward a clearing ahead. Amy followed, forgetting her tiredness. The trees opened up, and Amy gasped. In the clearing stood a large metal building, sleek and silvery. It didn't look like the colony buildings, it was smoother, more elegant. Soft lights glowed from windows along its sides. The purple light drifted toward a door in the building's side. Then it vanished. Amy hesitated. She knew she should go back to the colony. Mom would be worried, but she had never seen a building like this before. Maybe someone inside could help her get home. She walked up to the door. It slid open silently. Amy stepped inside. Frank and Linda reached the edge of the restricted zone by mid-morning. A simple marker, a red post stuck in the ground, indicated the boundary. Beyond it, the forest grew denser, the trees taller. Last chance to turn back, Frank said, checking his weapon. He had brought a standard-issue pistol. Not much use against Vaxtari technology, but better than nothing. Not without my daughter, Linda replied, stepping past the marker. They moved carefully, scanning for any security systems. The forest seemed peaceful, but both new appearances could be deceiving. The Vaxtari were masters of hidden technology. After 30 minutes of walking, Frank stopped suddenly, holding up his hand. Linda froze. "Look," he whispered, pointing to a patch of disturbed soil. "Those are Amy's footprints." Hope surged through Linda. She was here. Which way did she go? Frank examined the ground. "This way. The tracks are fresh, maybe 8 hours old." They followed the small footprints, moving faster now. The trees began to thin out, and ahead they could see a clearing. "Get down," Frank hissed, pulling Linda behind a large trunk. In the clearing stood a building, clearly Vaxtari design. It was smaller than their warships but had the same sleek lines and metallic sheen. No windows were visible from their position, just a single door on the near side. "What is that doing here?" Linda whispered. "They told us this area was dangerous because of unstable ground." "They lied," Frank said grimly. "The question is why, and what does it have to do with Amy?" Linda checked her scanner. "I'm picking up energy readings but no life signs. The walls must be shielded." "Amy's tracks lead straight to it," Frank noted, his voice tight. She went inside. Linda started to rise, but Frank held her back. "We can't just walk in. That's a Vaxtari facility of some kind. It'll be defended." "My daughter's in there," Linda said, her voice breaking. "I'm not waiting." Frank knew there was no stopping her. "At least let me go first." They moved to the edge of the clearing, staying low. No alarm sounded, no guards appeared. The building remained quiet and seemingly unprotected. "It's too easy," Frank muttered. "Or they never expected anyone to find it," Linda suggested. They reached the door. It was smooth metal with no visible handle or control panel. Frank examined it carefully, then pressed his palm against the surface. To their surprise, the door slid open. "They're not worried about human intruders," Frank realized. "This place isn't defended against us because they don't think we're a threat." Linda didn't care about Vaxtari security assumptions. "Amy," she called softly as they entered. "Amy, are you here?" The interior was brightly lit and sterile. White walls, white floors, and a corridor leading deeper into the building. The air smelled clean but with an odd metallic undertone. They moved forward cautiously. The corridor opened into a large room filled with computer terminals and strange equipment. Screens displayed data in Vaxtari script, incomprehensible to human eyes. "What is this place?" Linda wondered. Frank examined one of the devices. "It looks like a research facility, but what are they researching out here?" A soft noise came from a doorway on the far side of the room. Linda turned instantly. "Amy? Is that you?" No answer, but the noise came again. A muffled thump. Linda rushed to the door, Frank close behind her. It opened automatically, revealing a smaller room. The walls were lined with clear containers, each about the size of a refrigerator. Most were empty, but 3 contained something. Linda moved closer, then recoiled in horror. Inside each occupied container was a child. One was a small reptilian creature with golden scales, clearly not human. Another appeared to be from a species Linda had never seen, with 6 limbs and silvery fur. And in the third container was Amy. "Amy!" Linda cried, rushing to the container. Her daughter floated in a clear liquid, eyes closed, a breathing mask over her face, wires connected to small patches on her head and chest. "Is she alive?" Linda asked, her voice breaking. Frank checked the monitors attached to the container. "I think so. These readings look like vital signs. Her heart is beating." "Get her out," Linda begged. "Please get her out of there." Frank examined the container for a release mechanism. "I'm not sure how. This is alien technology. If we do it wrong..." "Step away from the specimen," a cold voice ordered from behind them. They turned to find Zextral standing in the doorway, flanked by 2 Vaxtari guards. All 3 held weapons pointed at Frank and Linda. "Specimen?" Linda's voice shook with rage. "That's my daughter." "That is Vaxtari property," Zextral corrected her. An interesting research subject. Human young display unique neurological patterns not seen in other species. Frank moved slightly, positioning himself between Linda and the Vaxtari. You've been experimenting on children? On Amy. We study all primitive species, Zextral said, as if explaining something obvious. Your offspring are particularly valuable for understanding how humans form emotional bonds. Such knowledge helps us control your kind more effectively. Linda stared at her daughter floating in the alien tank, then at the creature who had taken her. Something broke inside her. The last thread of fear that had kept her obedient to the Vaxtari for so long. I want my daughter back, she said, her voice suddenly calm. Now. Zexitral made the strange mouth movement that passed for a smile among his kind. You are in no position to make demands, human. Your presence here violates multiple regulations. The penalty is death. Then you'll have to kill me, Linda replied. Because I'm not leaving without Amy. The Vaxtari commander raised his weapon. That can be arranged. Time seemed to freeze in the laboratory. Linda stared down the barrel of Zexitral's weapon without flinching. Behind her, Amy floated in the clear liquid, unaware of the danger. Commander, Frank said carefully, think about what you're doing. If you kill us here, others will come looking. No one will find this facility, Zexitral replied confidently. And even if they did, what could your primitive species do about it? The Imperium has ruled your kind for 50 years. We will rule for 1,000 more. Linda's eyes never left her daughter. Why Amy? Why my child? Something like curiosity flickered in Zexitral's alien eyes. This specimen was not targeted specifically. Our collection drones detected a young human outside the colony perimeter and followed standard protocol. Collection drones? Frank asked, his mind racing for a way out of this situation. The lights, Linda realized suddenly. The purple lights, Amy must have followed. They were your drones. Zextral made a dismissive gesture. The drones emit a frequency that attracts the young of most species. It simplifies collection. Frank's hand inched toward his weapon. If he could just distract the guards long enough for Linda to get Amy out. You won't succeed, Zexitral said, noticing the movement. Your projectile weapon cannot penetrate our shields. Maybe not, Frank agreed. But I have to try. Before anyone could move, an alarm blared through the facility. Red lights flashed along the walls. Zextral turned to his guards. Check the perimeter. As one guard moved toward a console, Frank saw his chance. He lunged forward, tackling the second guard to the ground. The Vaxtari was stronger, but Frank had surprise on his side. Linda, get Amy, he shouted as he wrestled with the alien. Linda didn't hesitate. She grabbed a piece of equipment and smashed it against Amy's container. The clear material cracked but didn't break. Zexitral aimed his weapon at her, but before he could fire, the facility shook with a powerful explosion. The force knocked the commander off balance. What is happening? Zexitral demanded, steadying himself. The first guard checked the monitors. Humans are attacking the facility, many humans. Impossible, Zextral snarled. Frank managed to knock his opponent unconscious and scrambled to his feet. Not impossible, inevitable. Outside, the sound of weapons fire grew louder. Linda kept striking Amy's container until finally, the material shattered. The liquid spilled out onto the floor and Amy slumped forward. Linda caught her daughter ripping off the breathing mask and monitoring devices. Amy! Amy, can you hear me? The girl's eyelids fluttered but didn't open. She was breathing, but unconscious. Zextral backed toward the door, his weapon still trained on them. This changes nothing. Your colony will be punished for this attack. The Imperium does not tolerate rebellion. Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. Ceiling panels crashed down and the lights flickered. You're wrong, Frank said, helping Linda wrap Amy in his jacket. This changes everything. The door behind Zexitral burst open. Elena Ruiz stood there with a group of armed colonists. They had mining explosives strapped to their belts and determination in their eyes. Frank, Linda, Elena called. We tracked your signals. The whole colony is here. Zextral spun to face the new threat, but it was too late. Elena fired her weapon, and the commander collapsed to the floor. "Is he dead?" Linda asked, cradling Amy in her arms. Elena checked the fallen alien. "Stunned. We modified some mining tools into weapons. Not very powerful, but enough to overcome their personal shields at close range." Frank grabbed Zextral's weapon. "We need to free the other children." "Already happening," Elena said. "We found 3 more rooms with containers. The medical team is working on them now." Linda kissed Amy's forehead. "We need to get her to the medical center. She's not waking up." "Let's move," Frank ordered. "This facility might have a self-destruct system." They hurried through the corridors, now filled with colonists. Some were fighting the remaining Vaxtari guards, others were gathering data from the computers, and medical teams were tending to the rescued children. Outside, Linda blinked in the bright sunlight. The clearing was filled with colonists, hundreds of them. They had brought vehicles, weapons, and supplies. This wasn't just a rescue mission, it was an uprising. "How?" Linda asked as they rushed toward a medical transport. "When you didn't return by morning, we sent search teams to the restricted zone," Elena explained. "One team found the edge of the facility and reported back. Then we found something else, a hidden communication array. The Vaxtari have been monitoring everything we do, everything we say." Frank's face darkened. "The increased quotas. They knew exactly how much we could produce because they were watching us struggle. The colony voted," Elena continued. "Unanimously. We decided it was time to fight back." They reached the transport, where Dr. Sam Rivera waited. He immediately began checking Amy's vital signs. "Her neural activity is unusual," he reported after a quick scan. "They must have been stimulating specific areas of her brain. I need to get her to the medical center." Linda climbed into the transport, still holding Amy tightly. "What about the Vaxtari ship? The subjugator is still in orbit." Frank looked up at the sky. "They'll retaliate when they realize what's happened." "We thought of that," Elena said grimly. "Before we attacked, we sent a message to Earth, with proof of what the Vaxtari have been doing here." Frank stared at her. "You did what? How?" "All communications are monitored." "Not all of them," Elena smiled slightly. "Jack Powell has been working on something for years. A way to send compressed data bursts that look like stellar background radiation. The Vaxtari never detected it." "What did the message say?" Linda asked. "Everything. About Amy. About the children. About what they've been doing to us for 50 years. Elena's eyes were hard. "And we included a detailed scan of the subjugator. Its weapons, its shield frequencies, its vulnerabilities." Frank shook his head in amazement. "Earth won't stand a chance against the entire Imperium." "Maybe not," Elena agreed. "But they'll fight for their children, we all will." The transport lifted off, heading back to the colony. Below them, colonists continued to stream into the facility, taking everything of value: data, technology, weapons. In Linda's arms, Amy stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then settling on her mother's face. "Mom?" she whispered. Linda hugged her daughter tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." There was a purple light, Amy said weakly. It was pretty. "I know, sweetie. Just rest now." Amy's small hand touched Linda's wet cheek. "Why are you crying? Are you sad?" Linda shook her head, smiling through her tears. "No, honey, I'm not sad. I'm just so happy to have you back." Over the transport's radio, a voice suddenly broke through. "All units return to colony immediately. Vaxtari ships are descending from orbit, multiple vessels heavily armed." Frank looked out the window. In the distance, he could see them. 5 Vaxtari ships, including the subjugator, breaking through the clouds. "They're coming for us," he said quietly. Linda held Amy closer. "What do we do now?" Frank checked the weapon he had taken from Zextral. "We fight. For Amy. For all our children. We fight." The transport sped toward the colony dome, now visible on the horizon. Behind them, the Vaxtari facility erupted in flames as the last colonists set off explosives before retreating. In orbit above New Hope, another event was unfolding. The Vaxtari ships had detected an unexpected energy signature, a ship dropping, out of faster-than-light travel. Then another, and another. Earth had received New Hope's message, and Earth had responded. The medical transport carrying Linda and Amy landed inside the colony dome, just as the warning sirens began to wail. Colonists rushed to defensive positions, though few believed they could truly stop the Vaxtari ships. Dr. Rivera hurried Amy to the medical center. Linda refused to leave her daughter's side, holding the small hand as monitors were attached and scans were taken. Her brain activity is stabilizing, Rivera said, studying the readings. Whatever they were doing to her, the effects seemed temporary. Linda smoothed Amy's hair back from her forehead. Will she be okay? I think so, the doctor replied. She needs rest now. Her body has been through a serious trauma. Frank entered the medical center, his face grim. How is she? She'll recover, Linda said, not taking her eyes off Amy. Good, because we need to evacuate now. Frank's voice was urgent. The Vaxtari ships will be here in minutes. They're jamming our communications, but before they did, we received a message from Earth. Linda finally looked up. What did it say? 3 words. Hold. Help coming. Outside, the colony's makeshift defense teams prepared for battle. They had mining explosives, some modified tools as weapons, and a few old guns from Earth. Nothing that could stop a Vaxtari warship. We need to get everyone to the emergency shelters, Frank said. They're built into the bedrock. They might survive an orbital bombardment. Linda looked down at Amy, now sleeping peacefully. What about the children from the facility? The aliens? Already, in the medical transport bay. Elena is preparing them for evacuation. Frank put his hand on Linda's shoulder. We need to move, Linda, now. They carefully transferred Amy to a stretcher. As they wheeled her toward the emergency shelter entrance, the colony shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. They're starting to attack, Frank said. We need to hurry. The colony's central plaza was chaotic as people rushed toward the shelters. Parents carried children, others helped the elderly. Despite the panic, there was a strange order to it all. These people had lived under Vaxtari rule for years. They knew how to survive. Another blast rocked the colony, stronger this time. A section of the dome cracked and warning lights flashed. Dome integrity at 60%, a computerized voice announced. As they reached the shelter entrance, Elena ran up to them. Frank, you need to see this. She held up a small communication device, one of the few still working despite the jamming. On its screen, they could see the space above New Hope. The 5 Vaxtari ships had taken up attack positions, their weapons charging. But behind them, emerging from faster-than-light travel, were ships, human ships, dozens of them, then hundreds. My God, Frank whispered. Where did they all come from? The largest human vessel dwarfed even the Vaxtari ships. It moved into position above the colony, between the Vaxtari fleet and the planet's surface. The ships look strange, Linda said, studying the screen. They're not like any Earth vessels I've seen before. Because they're new, Elena explained. Our message didn't just go to Earth's government. It went to everyone. And apparently, Earth has been preparing for this moment for a long time. On the screen, they watched as the human ships surrounded the Vaxtari vessels. No shots were fired, yet. A new voice came through the communicator, breaking through the jamming. New Hope Colony, this is Admiral Peter Weaver of the Earth Defense. Fleet Flagship Vengeance, do you copy? Linda gasped. Peter, my Peter. Frank stared at her. Your husband? But he died in the pacification operation. Linda's hand shook as she took the communicator. This is Linda Weaver of New Hope Colony. Peter, is that really you? Linda. The voice broke slightly. Thank God you're alive. Is Amy with you? Yes, Linda said, tears streaming down her face. She's hurt, but she'll recover. Peter, we thought you were dead. Not dead, captured, along with thousands of others. They've been keeping us on prison ships, using us for labor and experiments. Peter's voice hardened. We were rescued 6, months ago by a resistance group. Earth has been building this fleet in secret for years, hidden in the asteroid belt. We've been waiting for the right moment. And our message was it, Frank realized. Yes, proof of what the Vaxtari were doing to human children, to all children. It united Earth like nothing before. Peter paused. The Vaxtari ships are hailing us. Stand by. The communication went silent. Linda looked down at Amy, still sleeping peacefully, despite the chaos around them. He's alive, she whispered. Amy's father is alive, Frank squeezed her shoulder. This changes everything. The colony shook again as another blast hit the dome. Warning alarms blared. Dome integrity at 40%. Evacuation recommended. We need to get below, Elena insisted. They wheeled Amy's stretcher into the shelter, where hundreds of colonists were already gathered. The heavy doors sealed behind them, muffling the sounds of destruction above. Inside the shelter's command center, they could still monitor what was happening through backup systems. The screen showed the human and Vaxtari fleets facing off in orbit. Something's happening, Frank said, pointing to the display. The Vaxtari ships were moving, trying to maneuver around the human fleet to continue their attack on the colony. The human ships matched their movements, keeping themselves between the Vaxtari and the planet. Then, without warning, the subjugator fired on the human flagship. What followed was unlike any space battle they could have imagined. The human ships didn't just fight back. They dominated. Their weapons cut through Vaxtari shields as if they weren't there. Their own defenses absorbed Vaxtari fire without damage. How is this possible? Elena asked, watching in amazement. 50 years, Frank said quietly. 50 years of studying their technology, finding their weaknesses. Earth was never as helpless as the Vaxtari thought. Within minutes, 3 of the 5 Vaxtari ships were disabled, including the subjugator. The remaining 2 surrendered. The communicator activated again. New Hope Colony. This is Admiral Weaver. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We're sending troops to secure the colony and medical teams to assist your wounded. Linda picked up the communicator. Peter, what happens now? The Imperium will send more ships. Let them come, Peter replied confidently. This isn't just about New Hope anymore. Every human colony is rising up, and we're not alone. The Aurelians, the Torva, the Makari, all the species the Vaxtari have, oppressed for centuries. They're fighting back too. Frank looked at the screen where human troops were already landing outside the damaged dome. Can we win against the entire Imperium? We already are winning, Peter said. The Vaxtari ruled through terror because they knew they couldn't control us through force alone. Now that the fear is gone, their empire is crumbling. The shelter. Doors opened, and human soldiers entered. They wore advanced armor unlike anything the colonists had seen before. Medical teams followed, immediately attending to the wounded. Linda sat beside Amy's stretcher as a doctor examined her. The girl's eyes fluttered open. Mom? She said weakly. I'm here, sweetheart. Linda smiled through her tears. The purple lights were bad, Amy said. I know, honey. But they're gone now. Did we win? Linda looked up at the screen. We're human. Ships now surrounded New Hope, protecting it. After 50 years of oppression, humanity had finally stood up against its tormentors. And they had done it not for power or revenge, but for a child, for all children. Yes, Linda said, holding her daughter's hand. We won. Above them, the first transport from the Vengeance landed inside the colony. Peter Weaver stepped out, scanning the crowds until he saw his wife and daughter. For a moment, he stood perfectly, still as if afraid they might disappear. Then he ran to them, gathering them both in his arms. Throughout the galaxy, the message spread from world to world, species to species. The Vaxtari Imperium was falling, not because they had faced a more powerful enemy, but because they had made one fatal mistake. They had taken a human child, and Earth had risen.